Hi, and welcome to Across the Desk. This week, we're going to discuss our very own seditionist, Senator James Lankford, who really hasn't been in the news a whole lot lately during this election cycle, as other issues and candidates have eaten up a lot of the air in the room. And that may be a good thing for Senator Lankford because he's fairly radical when it comes to his conservative views. But that's what we're going to discuss this week here on Across the Desk. So Senator James Lankford, he's been in the news this week for one certain issue, and he has it all over his website. I guess he thinks is a really great thing to run on. He's going to have a lot of support, which is actually taking away the price controls that were just passed in a Democratic measure to control prescription drug pricing through Medicare. Now, this is only Medicare that it controls prices for. Oh, and it also limits how much they can charge for insulin and stuff like that. But James Lankford thinks this is a bad idea. He's signed on with Mike Lee from Utah and a few others about this pricing scheme, is what he calls it. It's a scheme, and to him that's just bad. And we got to make these bad words come out so we can scare everybody with them and make sure that we're going to come out ahead. Well, see, it's not James Lankford who's coming out ahead. It's the pharmaceutical industry who's supporting him and the guy from Utah and all that stuff, you see, because that's how James Lankford works, you see. He's not really all that honest of a person. He can't be. I mean, the guy's a seditionist. He tried to jettison the Constitution on January 6th and then came out with a letter totally confessing to what he tried to do. Because as it all comes out, based on that alone, he knew on the 12th of December. We know this now through the committees that's come out and everything else. Everybody in Congress knew the 12th of December that the election was legitimate. It wasn't stolen. They'd gone through all the bases. They've gone all the procedures. And he absolutely knew on the 12th of December no election was stolen. But what did James Lankford do? He tried to steal it anyway. For his friends who told him to just forget the Constitution and the rule of law. Just find a way to keep Trump president. So now James Lankford, he really wants that to go away, and nobody's really mentioned it a whole lot, and he's probably better off for it. At least until I come along with my shows about him and talking about his insurrectionist ways and his sedition. But here we go. He came out this week saying we need to get rid of these price controls on Medicare. He goes, price controls don't ever work. They absolutely do. They're on everything we have. We have price controls even on oil. Do you know that? We do. Because it's actually that important. And we do things. We do subsidies to bring things down. And we do other controls to control prices of stuff. We do that. So when James Lankford comes out with a big, huge spiel making a molehill out of a mountain, you know it's just a chicken little lesson of conservative cowardice. That's what he's playing. See, he's telling you the sky is falling because we're going to control prices. See, and what it is really is it's a win for Democrats. When we control prices for the seniors, that's a win for Democrats. And that's how he sees it. So we can't have that. You see, these seniors are going to get cheaper drugs through their Medicare. We're going to save money for the United States government. It's going to save money in the Medicare program. It's going to be able to expand that even, maybe. But James Lankford doesn't like that. Mostly, I'm going to say because a Democrat came up with it. Because I guarantee you, a radical conservative like James Lankford, when it comes to something like this, if a conservative or a Republican was to promote this or put it out, he'd be all for it. Tell you how good it is that we're doing this. These seniors need those lower drug prices because of the inflationary measures that we're seeing now in the economy, in the worldwide economy. Which is another thing they like to do. You've heard this Biden inflation. It's President Biden, but you will never hear them say that. It's only Biden or Joe Biden to these people. So, President Joe Biden, they can't stand what he's done. They can't stand this or that. So that's why they're doing this. That's why James has come out with this big promotion. Hey, I'm going to take it to the libs, and I'm going to cut this out of their inflationary measures that they're trying to do to help alleviate inflation, because that's what it's about. See, James Lankford wants these people to suffer, you see, because the more they suffer, the more they'll realize that they need conservatives, Republicans, to rule over them. See, that's what it's all about. It's kind of what this is. This is how James plays the game. You see, he uses his power and control to harm those he doesn't like if he doesn't get his way. And that's what this is about. It's about harming Democrats because this is a popular bill that went through. It's a popular law that got passed. It's popular. You can't stand it. It's going to help Democrats. There again, can't have that happen. He's got to fight against it. Because again, James Lankford is so radical and so extreme and conservative that he has to oppose anything a Democrat comes up with. He has to. They have to. He can't be seen as helping Democrats with anything because then he'll get labeled a rhino. Kind of like they wanted to do when he went up, when he was at the podium when the insurrection happened and said, hey man, I can't do this anymore. Then they called him a rhino for not going through with it. So there you go. That's conservative thinking. That's where they're at. There's no logic with these people. So we got Senator James Lankford, who's running against Madison Horn. And it's an interesting race. Because one, James Lankford is pretty well ahead. This is a conservative state. We have a few 100,000 more registered Republicans than we do Democrats. And this is a statewide race. So that makes it an interesting dynamic. One, statewide races can't be gerrymandered. So it's going to give us a kind of a true democracy-like assessment of where people are, especially with James Lankford. I'm going to say he may do well because one, the Democratic candidate, Madison Horn, even though she's very smart, very well qualified, she really doesn't have his profile that he has. And that's probably going to help James Lankford out a lot because she really doesn't have that profile. And she's probably not garnering a lot of people to cross over and maybe not a lot of independents. It depends. Now, Stitt and Ryan Walters are really killing it for everybody because as you've seen the polling numbers on those races, Gina is way ahead of Ryan on several polls, as is Joy against Stitt. So they're really dragging down the Republican ticket here in Oklahoma, which is wild because for a really conservative state, supposedly really conservative, they're really not doing that well. But really their in again is one, it's Stitt's corruption. That's the biggest factor. Nobody likes his corruption. They don't like his cronyism. They hate his toadies. And they really hate the tens of millions of missing dollars that have been just funneled out by his cronies and toadies. So that's really going badly for Stitt right now. And Ryan Walters is just so radical and crying all the time that he's always hysterical. And he's always got this whipped up hysteria going on. And it just gets tiring after a while. People are tired of seeing that. They're just really tired of it. So he's not doing that good either. And this may help drag James down some, but really his profile is what's keeping him going. And this is what he does. He puts this out on his webpage, like thinking, hey man, this is great policy. This is really going to get me reelected. And this really tells you something. This really tells you where conservatives are at today and where their values are. These are their values. Hey, you know, your grandma got cheaper drugs this month. We're going to take that away from her. Conservative values. I don't get it either. Don't understand it. Because you see, it is inflationary control measures. That's what this is. That's what it does. See, it helps alleviate inflation on the elderly who rely on medications to sustain their older age. And right now there are reports going out that older people who are on fixed incomes are not going to the doctor. They're not going to get medical checkups because hey, do I buy food, rent, or do I go to the doctor? And that's where they're at right now because we do have inflation going on and it's a global crisis and it's really going on. So this is something Democrats really need to pay attention to. And we have. They came out with the Inflationary Act that was signed into law. So this is what the Democrats did. And almost immediately Republicans started attacking. Oh, look, it's not working. This is ludicrous. It takes time to implement things. They expect right now, get it going, it should work right now. But that's not how laws work. That's not how anything works. And they know this. What they're counting on is the American people not to know it so that they can fool them, so that they can con them, so that they can lie to them and be dishonest. That is James Lankford's character. He's dishonest. He's deceitful. He's a seditionist. He shouldn't be nowhere near the levers of government. He shouldn't be serving in government. He should be serving in federal prison. That's exactly where he should be. And I really hope it would be great if he could get voted out this year and Madison Horn go in. It would be great. Because then I could stop hammering him on his sedition. Because really, the guy needs to go to prison. I really hope during all this stuff, now that the January 6th committee has gotten all their stuff and all the recommendations out, now that the AG has everything, and they've been pretty tight-lipped on what they're going to do, which is probably a good thing. Shouldn't be telling the public all about your investigations like James Lankford wants to do. Why aren't they telling us about these investigations? They're having these investigations and they're not saying anything. Exactly, James. Because that's called professionalism, you see? Because what James wants isn't professionalism. He wants sensationalism. Nah, man, when you go after Democrats, we need to put this out into the press, man. Get it out to everybody. You need to disclose all of this so that we can get it out there. And that's James Lankford, because he doesn't care about law and order. He cares about sensationalism. Of course he does. Because here he is trying to break the law. Him and his buddies actually broke the law and tried to jettison the Constitution and do a soft coup by sending votes back to states. And then having this faux electors come in so they could say that, oh, hey, Trump won the election. And that's exactly what James Lankford's scheme was. When he absolutely knew a month before that the election was totally legitimate. That's James Lankford. This is the guy who's probably going to win the Oklahoma Senate seat here in Oklahoma. A traitor, a seditionist, a liar, and a cheat. Someone who should be really in prison. That is absolutely how I feel about it. And now we got this thing. How gross. I mean, how better can you say conservative values than I want to make your grandmother's pills more expensive? Because my pharmaceutical company buddies who pay my campaign expenses, they want it that way. This is the America James Lankford wants you to live in. This is the America James Lankford champions, where we can do things like this. And it's a big deal score for him because his pharmaceutical buddies get their money, he gets his money, and he gets to cut up whatever the Democrats did and be opposed to it, and he can run on that too, right? They go, oh, look, I gave it to the Democrats by giving it to your grandmother. I don't get it either. That's James Lankford for you. And this is Across the Desk with Kit Fairchild. We'll see you next week.